If you get the impression that I like Otto Keramik, you're right. I think Otto Gerhardt was one of the great glaze designers of the 20th century, which probably makes him one of the great glaze designers of all time. And I hope he will eventually get the recognition he deserves. Right now, the Otto items are best known for the rather striking volcanic glazes, and Otto Gerhardt designed the volcano glaze for Russia, which is considered to be the origin of the fat lava glazes. You'll notice no volcanic items here. I think, much as I love those, there are a lot of Otto glazes that are maybe more subtle, well, definitely more subtle, but quite often more difficult, and when you give them a little time and attention, more impressive. And yes, as you may have already seen in other videos, I'm rather partial to purple. One thing with the Otto Keramik is they do a lot of work, say variations on a theme, both in terms of shape and certainly with glazes. Although you won't find a single shape with 200 or more glaze variations on Otto Keramik the way you can with some Schurig items, there is certainly a significant variety among the glazes. As you can see with the jug shape here, this jug can be found in a variety of glazes, many of which are much more difficult to find than the fat lava glazes. Although, as you note, two of these do have a fairly heavy drip. The small jug is actually a situation where size matters. And the smaller item, since it is harder to find, well, let's say probably should have a higher market value for that reason. Now this one's also because of oh my, that glaze. And it does have somewhat more subtle texturing than the volcanic glazes. And also one of the things that you will find quite often on the Otto Keramik glazes is a variety in the tone, with the high gloss, semi-matte or matte all on a single piece. And to note here, that is the original Otto Keramik label. Don't know exactly how long it was used. The later label is a gold foil oval shape, and a variation of that continues to be used today. The company was eventually taken over by Otto Gerhardt Jr. and continues to make some very fine art pottery. They are also continuing to make some of the older shapes. They currently have some of the Russia molds as well. And they have re-released versions of earlier glazes, although, well, if you look closely, and sometimes it doesn't take that close a look, you will see differences, and the new glazes really lack the attention to detail that you'll see on the older glazes, and in some cases that's simply because the chemicals that were used before are no longer legal, usually for health reasons. Now here we see two types of variations. The size on the jugs, and these are actually two of the harder to find sizes. The most common size for that shape is about a 6 to 7 inch size. So the purple glaze is a bit harder to find. and the tall vase with that rather brutalist red and black glaze is difficult to find in that size and with that glaze. And the shape in the front is a bit uncommon itself, but also notice that it is essentially the same red and black glaze, but in a primarily semi-gloss to gloss version rather than the matte version on the large jug. Now with these glazes, at a glance, well, they look okay, but it's when you look closer and start to pay attention to the detail that you begin to see just how much is really going on. With the green jug in the middle, that is one of the glazes I believe is still produced, but the level of both subtlety and complexity is higher on this example. And you may notice you have the same shape with a handle, without a handle, and Otto did that variation much like many of the other West German companies did. Now, one of the neat things with the rather mid-century shape on the left is, and I don't have an example of this, but you will find what I call the goblet version, which essentially just takes the form and inverts it. And that's one of the things I love about West German pottery. There's sort of a sense of inventiveness touched with whimsy. Now, on the left is the typical Otto base, flat and a fairly white glaze and no company mark. However, what we see in the center is the same base with the felt covering. And you will find that felt covering on most Otto items. Well, it is on even the earliest ones because they glued that on there very, very well. They do not tend to come off, and usually probably the only way you find one without the felt is if somebody decided to scrape it off to see if there was a mark. That was how I found out what the bases look like. However, if you look on the right, it's the same jug shape, but you can see under the felt it does have the more common concave base. So I don't know why certain Otto items have that base. It does not have any relationship to the shape. And as far as I can tell, it has no relationship to the time period when an item was made. It is simply a quirk. And of course, when it comes to West German pottery, you have to be ready and willing to deal with quirks. So if you decide to go on the hunt for Otto Keramik items, well, you're going to find some very striking pieces, but be patient. Don't pass by that item that doesn't just grab you right at first. Take a closer look, because when it's an Otto Gerharz glaze, you can bet there is something there to appreciate. So I wish you good luck on your hunt, but I hope I find it first. So long.